Hello, everyone. How happy are we to be in Earthshot Prize land? It's almost like magic. And I was thrilled that Mike started us off this morning by reminding us of the relationship between this venue and Home Alone. And I know it seems like he talked 3 weeks ago because we've been packed with so much information, but what has been evident to me since he said that is we are proving that we are not home alone. We are proving that we're not alone on our home planet. We're proving that we are together in community, in collaborative effort. In fact, I would dare say we are growing a human mycelium network across the globe. And the beautiful thing about the mycelium is that it is unseen, but unbelievably powerful. So welcome to the Earthshot Prize Mycelium family, because you are now considered yourselves, please, as members of this mycelium family. And we continue to grow that mycelium family. And as part of our growth, we have not only new finalists and new winners every year, but we also have roped in a couple of new prize council members. And so it is my deep pleasure to debut 2 of our 3 new prize council members this year. Wanjira Mathai, a friend of, I want to say many decades, but maybe that's not the politically correct thing to say. Who, as I'm sure all of you know, is an environmentalist and activist for many, many years and heads the Africa efforts of WRI in addition to the global partnerships. And José Andrés is our other new prize council member, started out as a chef and pretty soon decided the kitchen is way too small for him, so he's going to cook in the entire world. So he has become one of the extraordinary humanitarians who rushes in when we have major disasters around the world. So it is truly a pleasure to have the 2 of you, and we have a 3rd prize council member who we will be introducing tonight. And Jacinda needs also no introduction. Jacinda, former PM of New Zealand, and also an incredible activist and mycelium co-conspirator here. Jacinda is on the trustee board of the prize. And I know that we have a couple of mycelium members sitting in the audience who are wanting to put these 3 distinguished people to the test with a few questions. So I think, Frank, where are you? Hello? Hey. Hello, Frank.
Perfect.
Maybe.
There.
Frank? There you are. Okay. Frank, you have a question.
Yes. Let me introduce.
Am I reminding you that you have a question for us?
I do have a question in here.
Okay.
Yes. So our group was the winner of the 2023 Clean Our Air category. We make lithium-ion batteries, which have no toxic PFAS forever chemicals, very low carbon footprint of production, and can be recycled simply in water. So a big, important part of our business is policy. So my question is, with global gatherings such as UNGA, COP, spotlighting the importance of policy as a way to tackle climate change, what policies are you tracking that have the biggest potential to be real game changers for climate solutions?
Can I pop that to our former politician?
I'm very pleased to not take responsibility for the global regulatory environment. Frank, great question. I love how you put your solution on the table in the question because you do fantastic work. You know, two things for me. Politicians have the ability in this, this football match that is the climate environment where they can change the rules that will either speed up or slow down the game and either cause more goals to be scored or not. And one of the things that I track consistently is the speed at which we remove fossil fuel subsidies. Because not only are those incentives $7 trillion worth in entirely the wrong place, but that represents a loss of otherwise investment that we could be putting into alternatives. So that's something I keep a close eye on, as well as, of course, the trajectory for fossil fuels generally, which we must bring to an end point. The second that I'm interested in is CBAMs, carbon border adjustments, because again, we need to properly price carbon in our economies. I do think those are things that could speed up the goal scoring, but the one thing I'll also say is politicians are not the only players on the field. So every single person in this room, regardless of how fast governments are moving, can still make a difference. So do not be disheartened by the speed of the game.
By the slow speed. But that is what the Earthshot Prize is all about accelerating this. I also wanted to ask Wanjira if you would come in on this question also, because policies are important, but they will not occur if the almighty dollar is not behind them. So what do you track in terms of investment?
Well, I agree.
Sorry, I have to be politically correct. If the almighty British pound is not behind it, because that's what we track here is the British pound.
Well, that notwithstanding, I would say, that I think Jacinda points at a crucial one in the world that we live in, but I would say nature-based. We live in a world that undervalues the role and the beauty of nature. We have literally one currency at the moment, which is carbon, but we know that forests, and especially forests on my continent, play such a huge role in keeping our planet alive, and we don't value the ecosystem services that they provide: water, pollination, soil, everything that keeps us alive. But we undervalue nature. So policies that continue to incentivize the protection of green spaces and incentivize the creation of new ones, I track.
Good example we have just heard from Tom Crowther.
Yeah.
Good example. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Is that good? All right. Sam, there you are, Sam, behind your beard. Hello.
Hey, Christina.
G'day.
G'day. Hey, how are you?
It's a nice beard.
I wanted to ask a question directed at José. I mean, I'm from Sea Forest, and we're focused on reducing methane emissions in livestock. But what we're really focused on is food systems transformation. And I'm curious to understand how can we excite and inspire investors and businesses in this room to make those bold and brave steps to change and create positive environmental and social outcomes?
Well, I think, I think for-profit companies, big ones, new ones, that bring solutions to the problems we face or see opportunities in problems. For-profits, they need to have a more non-profit mind. You should not be there just to make money, even it's important, but really you should be there just thinking how you're going to be improving the lives of others. The non-profits, they should be having more a business mind, because I'm tired of non-profits. Like, they keep asking for more money, but they never seem to be solving the problems that they're asking the money for. And government should be doing both at the same time. But especially we need to remember all the poor of the world, they seem always forgotten. We forget about them. We are always creating products for the rich of the world. My daughters can go to an Apple store and test the computer before they buy it. But the poor people of the world don't have these same stores, so they can test a clean kitchen. 3 billion people on planet Earth are cooking with fossil fuels. In the process of feeding humanity, we are destroying the environment. And this is not sustainable, but this is an opportunity for companies and business to create the kitchens of the future, that without cutting trees, we could be feeding a forever growing population. So this is what I will do. For-profits, they need to have this mindset that it's very important that they succeed, to improve the world. And the nonprofits need to start becoming much more thinking like a profits. What is the return on the investment is something we all need to be asking ourselves. And that investment needs to be proved, which is giving a shot to humanity itself. And sometimes this starts with the right kitchen that can give hope to millions of families around the world that in the process of feeding themselves, they're destroying the environment and their future. So big problems have very simple solutions. Sometimes we overcomplicate the response. We need to go directly to what is my return on investment. In my case, is use one plate of food at a time. Sometimes it's the way that we start creating change and creating opportunity.
Thank you, Jose. Florent, where are you? You also asked for, space for a question. There you go.
Hello, this is Florent Kaiser, co-founder and co-lead of Acción Andina. And we are proving that by uniting communities honestly and deeply, we can restore forest across an entire continent, South American Andes. My question has to do with, when we look around this room, and there's a lot of hope, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of optimism. Yet out there, there's a whole different world for many of us. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear of crisis, of despair. How can we use the combined, the collective power and message of the Earthshot Prize as a platform to foster hope in the communities and young people that most need it today?
Aha, a question right to the heart of what we're doing. I'm afraid that's a question that all three of you are going to have to answer in your own ways. And if you answer it correct, you can stay in the mycelium, and if you still have to learn, who wants to jump in?
I'm happy to go. I mean, I live in the mycelium, so I'm planning to stay there.
Okay.
It's such a good question, because the reason there's so much despair is that we are not doing as good a job as those who are spreading fear in telling our stories of hope. I live on a continent that today presents some of the most exciting investment opportunities for both climate and development. Not many people know that.
And the Earthshot Prize is going to your one.
We cannot wait to celebrate the Earthshot Prize there. But consider this, the youngest and fastest growing workforce in the world is on the African continent. 1 in every 5 people on this planet will be African by 2050. We have the average age or the median age, however you want to call it, in my country, Kenya, is 19 years old. With so many exuberant, young, highly educated young people waiting to transform their countries, their economies. We also have a continent that is beaming with the abundance of some of the best renewable energy potential in the world. 60% of the best solar potential is on the African continent. And yet, only 3% of solar investments make their way there. We're not doing a good job, somehow, of drawing investments and beginning to understand why the money is not flowing where the sun shines. And then we also know the abundance of critical minerals. Somebody mentioned lithium-ion batteries, and almost every important critical mineral needed for the renewable energy sector is in abundance on the African continent. Here's the thing. The world will not address its climate, and I say our climate and development goals, if we do not unleash the potential of Africa's climate solutions. That's a partnership story. Public, private, philanthropic, all of us. That's what we are not doing so well in telling. It's extremely exciting, it's urgent, it's action-oriented. I live in that continent, so I see it every day. But I wonder, what do we need to do to tell it better? And some of those people who can help us do that are right here. But those are the stories we have to tell and transform lives. See, we don't only need to do it because it's the right thing to do. We do it because it's actually in our enlightened self-interest.
Jacinda?
I think there are... There are some people who think sometimes perhaps the slow pace at which we're moving on climate action is because politicians aren't moving quickly enough, and perhaps politicians aren't moving quickly enough because we're somehow polarized on this issue of climate change, and some people doubt it or don't agree with the action that needs to be taken. That view is wrong. People do want action. The United Nations Development Programme ran a survey this year that found of those high-emitting countries, the majority of people in those countries wanted their governments to do more and faster. In fact, the nation where often it's held up as somehow being divided on climate is the United States. 66% of people wanted their government to move faster and further. So I do think we need to move on beyond this idea that somehow the general population are holding us back. And politicians do need to take responsibility by the pace at which we work, because actually the world is waiting for it. They've seen the dumpster fire that is climate change, and they're calling for people to put it out. But one of my messages would be for our finalists. You do incredible work. And I think because in some cases we have startups in amongst the mix, there's perhaps not a hesitancy, but almost the approach of we need to reach out to investors or to government for policy change with some kind of deference. Not apologetic, but perhaps without being quite as forthright as you otherwise might be. But you are the ones giving us the gift. You are the ones that have something to offer. You are the ones that are bringing us hope and optimism. So take that and turn it into the absolute confidence we need each of you to have as you reach out to government and as you reach out to investors. You have so much to offer us, so please keep going and maintain your optimism and your expectation that we should all do more.
I used to have, live in an apartment that I had an elevator that I think used to speak to me every day, because we'll have phrases right there. And one they claimed was from Winston Churchill. It said, success, and we all here, we look for success, for you and for others. But said success is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. Be ready to fail and celebrate. But also somebody, very important, somebody said that the best of life and the best opportunities actually are at the end of your comfort zone. Beyond that horizon we don't see. Don't be afraid to be on that horizon, because there is where the true opportunities are going to happen. I used to have one guy, Robert Egger, 30 years ago, a person very important in my life, a food fighter. He said, in terms of social change and philanthropy, that it seems that philanthropy was always about the redemption of the giver, when philanthropy must be about the liberation of the receiver. Let's start doing things to give dignity to the voiceless. Let's start making sure that we don't feel pity for the people, but we give them our respect, showing up there, creating opportunity, creating your ideas into real agents of change. I am President Andrés, and I endorse this message.
So to those three wonderful answers, I would like to add what is underneath those three. And Florent, I think it is not surprising that we humans react with fear, with overwhelm to the greatest threat that we have ever faced. In fact, we humans, that's the way we're wired, and that's why we're still alive, because when the lion comes at us, we do one of three things. We fight it, we freeze and hide under our blankets, or we go into flight. Fight, flight, freeze. We have been doing that, my friends, for thousands of years. In fact, we've been doing it as long as we have been human. So that is what we are wired to do. So I am not surprised that when we recognize the biggest threat we have ever had to the existence of humanity on this planet, that there are so many people that go into fight and begin to blame and attack others. That there's so many people that go into freeze because they feel overwhelmed by the scale of the problem. That there's so many people who go into flight because they just go, actually, I don't want to see that piece of news. Can I have a piece of chocolate cake? Right? Because distract themselves. So I understand that. That is a human reaction. The question I think we all have in front of us is, it has been a human reaction that has served us well. Does it continue to serve us well? Or are we at the point in which we have to recognize the threat, recognize what our instinctual reactions ought to be, and then make an intentional choice about changing our reaction and stepping into cultivating and growing our sense of agency about being able to make a difference. That is not something, honestly, that society has taught us. But that is what is needed now. And that is why the Earthshot Prize is so important. Because, as we have heard, the Earthshot Prize scours the world, finds, points to, brings them to scale and support not just those of you who are actually having an impact that can be measured in tons or acres or trees planted. That is really important. But the other piece that I think is equally or even more important, which is underneath that, you're showing to the world that there is a different way of thinking. There's a different way of speaking, and there definitely is a different way of acting. And by showing that there is another way, you're helping to not just inspire, but honestly pull people in the direction of the solutions and of the better world that we want to see. So it is not just, yes, it is also about measurement and integrity, as Mark Carney said, but it is also a question of, can we get to what humanity can really do if we pull ourselves up by the bootstraps at this most critical moment in the decisive decade. Thank you, everyone. We have to close here.